Well, here I am again, back with another computer related video. And you might wonder, what has he got on his mind now? Now, you're probably thinking, good Lord, he has lost his mind. And you'd probably be right, to be perfectly honest. Uh, but that's not just another Mac Pro. That's a piece of history. Let's take a look. Apple history, I say. Well, what the heck is the difference between this and these other Mac Pros we've been looking at? Externally, not much. Although the one thing you're going to see externally, this port, the top here. Now these two are FireWire ports, which the other Mac Pros have too. FireWire never really caught on, but at least in the Mac world, back in 2006, it was a thing, and continued to be for a while. The original FireWire 400 had a connector that would fit that, and then FireWire 800, its successor, had that lower one. On the 2010 Mac Pros, you would see two FireWire 800. FireWire 400 had ceased to be a thing. And if you look very carefully at the back, the FireWire ports here, same thing. 400, 800. All right. Now, it's inside. Door comes off in exactly the same way. This is where we begin to see the differences. From about here up, it would look pretty similar. Optical drive bays, hard drive bays. That's the graphics card, believe it or not. And that looks to me to be the stock NVIDIA card that came with the things. Something that has come off. We'll have to examine that. All right. We don't have that beautiful little CPU tray that the 2009-2010 Mac Pros have. Instead, well, we have a lot of dust that's going to need to get a cleaning, but we'll get to that another time. We have these two RAM trays, and that's the RAM in there. You can hardly recognize it due to the rather massive heat sinks around those things. It takes DDR2 RAM, and according to the listing, this comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM, which would mean 8 gigabytes for each of the two processors. The processors are in here. They can be upgraded, similar to what I have done with the 2010 Mac Pro. But it's a little bit more involved. Instead of just sliding the tray out, you've got to get in here, and then in fact you can make those adjustments. It will take more than 16 gig of RAM, although this has obviously been upgraded. The stock out of the right from Apple, it came with 1 GB of RAM. These were different times, of course. All right, so that, while the graphics card has not been updated, that will. All right. Hard drives. Oh, dear. We have a fail in Truth of Advertising. I don't know how well you can see that. It's a Seagate hard drive, 250 gigabytes. Now, this would not be the original drive that shipped with it, because they didn't ship, to my knowledge, with Seagate Barracudas. But the eBay listing did clearly state 1 terabyte hard drive. So we're going to have to give that seller a little bit of a contact and see what's up with that. The other bays, all populated. And there is 1 optical drive in the upper bay. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I can see it through there. I'm not really sure why people would want more than 1 optical drive. I'm sure, at least at that time, there was a reason. And boy, this thing is incredibly dusty. That's going to need a cleaning. All right. So what this is the Mac Pro 1,1, which was first released to the public in late 2006. I believe late August 2006, if memory serves. And, I mean, that's significant. This is the first of the Mac Pro line, but it has even a little bit more significance in that this computer, when Apple released it, basically drove the final nail into the coffin of the PowerPC era of Macintosh computers. Macintosh computers had for many years used PowerPC processors, which they got in association with IBM and with Motorola. And they were really very good processors. They had starting G3s, G4s, G5s. And I was in the Apple ecosystem, we didn't call it that back then, in the late PowerPC era. My first working Mac, which I used full-time, was an iMac G5. I also had a Mac Mini, which we kept upstairs. It was actually in the dining room to make quick checks on things without having to go down into the basement. And I had, I was teaching at the time and needed a mobile computer. I had a PowerBook G4. The problem really with these processors, the G5 in particular ran incredibly hot, and Apple was never able to solve that. Motorola, IBM was never able to solve that. The G5, for its day, was an excellent processor, but it was more intended for servers where there would be server cooling and not as much of a problem. I never had a problem with my iMac G5. However, I know many people did. So, Apple started in 2006, started phasing out the PowerPCs and released Intel processor Macs. First, I believe it was the iMac, then the Mac Mini, then the PowerBook. PowerBook may have been phased out before the Mac Mini switchover. The PowerBook was phased out and replaced by the now famous MacBook Pro. The predecessor to the Mac Pro line was the PowerPC. All of the other computers in the Mac line had been switched over to Intel except the Pro line. And until late 2006, you could still order the PowerMac G5. It ran, the dual processor in particular ran so incredibly hot. It had to be liquid cooled, and basically it had like antifreeze running through there, and it was prone to leakage and incredible damage. Not a good scene. You can see why they had to make the switch. I was not happy because when they announced the switch over to Intel, I realized, okay, all of my computers now are going to be obsolete very, very quickly. All right. So that's the end of the history lesson here. I suppose then the next step to get this darn thing booted up. All right. Pressing the button, the light comes on. Now we're waiting for it to boot up. It actually came in all the original packaging, including the big box and including the styrofoam that went around it in 2006. All right, we have monitor adapters, VGA to DisplayPort, DisplayPort to mini DisplayPort. Okay. All right, and there's more stuff. Manuals, user's guide. Oh, there's some other stuff here. Airport certification. That's good. I'm hoping there's an airport code in here. It did not come standard with it. All right, we're booting up. Probably a problem with the sound source again. And this, I think, is cool. It's the System Restore disk. Now, I'm going to need to get something more of a drive in there. But one of the things I was thinking of doing was partitioning the drive and installing Tiger, because it originally shipped with. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, this is not what I was expecting at all. Yeah. The guy did not send the right disk in. Okay. Well, here we go. Reinstall Mac OS X. Okay, so yeah, it's Lion. Yeah, he just reinstalled Lion so it would be fresh. Because you aren't connected to the internet. If you connect to the internet via Wi-Fi, use the menu with the Wi-Fi icon to select your network. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're going to try this again. Okay. 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 Yeah, I booted into recovery. Yeah, but there's a 250 gig hard drive. There's 249.2 available. So yeah, there's just nothing in there. So yeah, I booted right into recovery. Sign in to download from the Apple Store. Oh, jeez. Okay. All right, so we've got to now type the password. And then, oh, I'm reaching around the tripod. The tripod, so a little awkward. Okay. About 62 hours and 45 minutes remaining. Well, so what are you doing for the next 62 hours or so? Closer to 63 hours. Okay. That was totally bogus, of course. Again? Oops. Okay. Well, I'll try to keep track of how long this goes, but I don't think there's any real reason for you to sit here and watch this, nor is there a real reason for me to leave it in and then speed it up. So, here we go. We'll be back for you in just a second when something has happened. Well, the installation is complete, or so it said. So I imagine it's just going to boot up, and then I'll have to go through the process of setting up the screen. Man, in the early days of internet recovery, instead of the recovery partition being complete, yeah, I had to download all of that from the internet. Wow. But the good news is it did not take 63 hours to do. Yeah, here we are. Okay, I'm going to stop the video again, go through the setup. I'm not really intending to use Lion a whole lot, but yeah, we'll discuss plans later on. So, there you go. We're making progress. Well, I'm going to assume that this recording is actually happening. QuickTime Player screen recording is a little bit different than what you see in more modern versions of the operating system. But welcome to the Lion desktop. This wallpaper look familiar to anyone? It's been a long time. But we're up and running anyway. Okay, let's take a look at about this Mac. More info. Alright. 2 by 2.66 gigahertz dual core Intel Xeon. That's where you get the 4 cores from. That's, I believe, was the middle option of the 3 possibilities for processors you could get when you ordered these things new. The 16 gigabyte of RAM, DDR2 RAM. It's quite a bit slower than what we're used to today. But they came from the factory with 1 gigabyte. So either, I think most likely this is user upgraded. I don't think anybody would have ordered it with 16 gig at that point. But I'm glad that it's there. Graphics, NVIDIA GeForce 730 GT, 256 megabytes. That's the stock card, and boy is it old. And we are of course running Mac OS 10 Lion, at OS 10 back then, Lion 10.7.5. And good heavens, there are 6 software updates. I'm going to be curious about those. Alright. Display is reading correctly. Looking good. The storage, 250 gigabyte SATA disk. That was supposed to be 1 terabyte. I have messaged the seller. Of course, I just did it, so I don't know what his response is going to be. There's the memory. The 2 trays, both full. Take a quick look at the system report. Mac Pro 1,1, dual core Intel Xeon. The 2 total number of processors, 2. Okay, all of that is right. Disk burning. Okay, that's going to be a super drive. All right, that'll be showing the disk. All right. Bluetooth, there isn't any. We'll have to, somewhere or other, I've got an extra dongle. We'll see if that actually does anything on this machine or not. Not that I'm going to be dying over the lack of Bluetooth. Okay, Wi-Fi. It does clearly have Wi-Fi because we're on the internet here. Broadcom Airport Extreme 802.11 ABGN. That didn't change between 2006 and 2010. And we are connected to the internet. So, all looking good. Alright. I will do those software updates. We'll see what comes up. Alright, now what's going to happen? We'll open Safari. Oh yeah, I had tried to access YouTube. Please update your browser to access YouTube. Good luck with an updated browser for Lion. Actually, once I do install Tiger on this, which I am planning on doing, then there is a 10.4 port to Intel. The 10.4 browser was only intended for the PowerPC processors, but there is a fork to Intel. It's an unsupported fork and may not be real current, but strangely it may be more possible to get a more modern browser on Tiger than it is here on Lion. It's a funny world, isn't it? Okay. All right. So obviously we've got an issue there. You know, strangely, I did try plugging in a USB drive. Let me get another one. Okay, just a quick addendum. After I recorded the last clip, I went on a hunt. We'd seen that YouTube would not work, it would not play. So I started trying to find a browser that would actually work in Lion. I discovered a web page that Safari actually would open for a change, with a suggestion on the Apple support forums, Apple community forums, that one could use WaterFox. So I Googled that. That opened up too. The WaterFox link that I got actually in the forum only showed up Windows versions and the Android version. Nothing that would do me any good at all. So I finally, after Googling and looking and trying to figure it out and practically giving up, I had found a while back WaterFox 56.2.12. I downloaded that and installed it, and it just crashed. In fact, it kept asking me if I wanted to open it anyway, and I would say open, and it would come right back. And I tried to cancel it, but it kept coming back. I had to restart the darn computer. What I did finally find, if there's anybody who might be in this kind of situation, I will use WaterFox as my default browser. Okay, so this is advertising the 2019-12 release. That I believe would still just crash and crash and crash. Okay, so our test, since we all love YouTube, and it does open up. I had done this earlier, so I've even signed in. Go to my channel. Now what I don't know is if this old version of QuickTime will actually record computer sounds, but here's the video I uploaded earlier today. And it's playing. Of course, we've got the internal speakers going on. Okay. Actually, let's go back with this.
And it arrives.
Will it play full screen? Yes, it did.
This is not exactly the sign that you want to see on the top of the box.
And it actually, looks pretty good. So yeah, WaterFox 56.2.10. I wouldn't go above that, but that still is within this past year, and I think it should be good for quite a while here. Okay. All right. We can stop that. Gonna check out that that recording perfectly well. So yes, water fox. Let's look at. Excuse me. Water fox, about water fox. Oh, so it's 2019.12, which is not what I thought I was installing, but by golly, it's working. Thank heaven. So really glad of that. All right, so that is just the update, and now I'm going to close out this video, put it together, render it, and upload it, and probably tomorrow sometime. All right, well, enjoy.